Hello everyone, in this video we're going to learn how to query our data in SQL and how to use the select statement with several types of clauses like where, group by, having. At the end, you would understand the execution order of SQL query. So let's start. What is the SQL SELECT query? This is used to query the database and ask questions we have on our mind from the database. The select statement is used to retrieve data from the table in the database, and we get an output as a result of this query. Think of it this way: the select statement asks the database a question and we get an answer as the result. The select statement does not change or modify the data in the database. Rather, it retrieves data from the table. It's like a search engine. What are SQL clauses? There are several clauses used in an SQL query. Depending on the question of interest, this will determine the clause or clauses to use. Let's start with the basic clause, select and from. The SQL syntax for this is select asterisk from table. Using the asterisk or star means you want to retrieve all the columns in the table. Then you specify the table name in your database. Refer to my video on creating a table in this playlist to follow along. Now, let's start with a question. What is in the patient table? We would like to know what types of attributes and observations are in the patient's table. In our query tool, let's write select. You use star or the asterisk because you want to retrieve all the values, and you say from and type the table name. Select star from new patient. Let's run this query. It has successfully returned all the data we have in our table: the ID, name, age, amount, sex, date, telephone, payment method, zip code, insurance, and BMI. And you can also see it showing their data types, and here it's indicating that the ID colon is the primary key. Also, let's select all the data in our order table, which is the patient logs. Let's retrieve all the data from the patient logs. So we say select star from patient logs, and you want to ensure that this match your table name, otherwise you won't get a result. So let's run this. Here we have the result ID as the primary key. We have seen doctor, next appointment, blood work, payment status, pending test, and appointment status. Now let's say you want to retrieve specific columns from the tables and not the entire column list. We can specifically select the columns you need by listing them out. The syntax here is select column from table. This filters the entire data set and only gives the selected column as your desired output. So now let's answer this question. Say we want to retrieve the patient's name, date, sex from the patient's table. So we say select. Here you list the column name. So we say name, date, and sex from new patients, which is our table, and you run this code. Here we can see we have 15 observations, but a common mistake new users make is to put a comma after the last column, and this is going to give you an error message. Let's run this. You get an error message. So to avoid doing this, ensure you don't put a comma after your last column, and when you run your query, it works. You can also see that we have exactly the number of columns we listed in our select statements: the name, date, and sex. So the order in which you put them is also the order it would return your query. If you wanted to see dates first and the name next, all you need to do is swap their positions. So we have name, and you run this. So we have it here. Now let's move to the next clause, the where clause. The where clause is used to filter the entire table to see only the results that meet the search condition stated in the query statement. It is also used before performing any aggregations like count, sum, average, max, and min. The syntax for this is select star from table where search condition. SQL executes these statements first by retrieving the data from the table and then filtering out each row that doesn't meet the search condition. In the output, you only get the results that meet the condition. So let's say we want to retrieve records of patients where the sex is male. We write the query as this. In our query tool, we want to retrieve patient records that are male. So we say select star from new patient. To do this, we use the where clause. So we say where sex equals, I'm going to put this in in quotation marks because it's a text, and M here signifies male, and we run this query. We can see out of 15, there are 8 males in this new patient's table. So in order to avoid getting an error, you use the single quotes for text. And if it were to be, let's say, a number, for example, let's say we want to see where BMI is greater than 22, and we run this. We have 14 records, and we don't have to put this in single quotation. Let's say we want to retrieve patient records where the amount is greater than 5,000. Here you say select from new patients where amount is greater than 5,000. You can see I didn't put the 5,000 in single quotes because it's an integer, it's a number. So we run this and we have 6 observations where the amount is greater than 5,000. You can retrieve a specific column by also setting a condition. So let's say I want to retrieve name, just name and amount from patient's table, new patient's table, where age is greater than 18, and run this query. We can see that everyone in our table is greater than age 18. The next clause is the group by. Let's learn how to use the group by clause for aggregation and grouping our data. It is used to combine rows with the same values into groups. This comes after the where clause and before the other by statement. The group by is used to do aggregation column by column. There are several aggregations that can be done, like sum, count, average, max, and min. The sum answers the question, what is the total amount? Count answers the question, how many? Average tells us the average value of a particular group. Max gives the maximum value, and min gives the minimum value. The syntax for this is select column name. You have the aggregation, for example, sum, and put the column name in parentheses from table, and you had the group by with the column name. Now let's do an exercise. Let us say we want to find the total amount by payment method. We want to know how much was paid using different methods like credit cards, cash, or debit card. We can do this in our query. We start by saying select payment method, which is the column of interest to us, and add your comma because we want to add our aggregate, which is sum. We'll be summing amount from table name, which is new patient, and the group by statement. We are grouping it by the different payment methods we have, and we run this query. We have cash as 10,005, check 95, credit 37 35,700 and debit as 12,200. But if you notice here, the column just says sum, but you can also name that column. You can rename it. To do this, we use the as, it's called aliasing. So we say sum amount as, let's call this total amounts. And when you run this query, your column has changed to total amount. This just makes it more clear and understandable what the sum means to another user. One thing to note is the column you use in a group by must be stated in the select statement. So let's say I want to select payment method and zip code. I would get an error. Why? Because I did not specify zip code in my group by. But to fix this, all I need to do is add zip code to my grouping and run this. Now we can see, so there are several zip codes, and we can see for this particular zip code, this is the total amount and this was the payment method. So remember, whatever you group by must also be stated in your select statement. Now let's find the average ages and BMI for male and female patients in our new patient records. So we say select, specify the column and average age as, let's say we want this to be called average age. Don't forget your comma after the column. And we also say average BMI. Once select this as average BMI from the table name, which is new patients, and group by the column which you specified in the select statements, and we run this. We have the average age for male and the average BMI, and we also have the average age for female and the average BMI. Next, let's move to the next clause, the having statement. This is used to further filter the table after aggregations. Note that we can only use this clause after grouping is done. The syntax for this is select the column, perform the aggregation from table, then you group by the columns and state your having condition. You specify the condition for further filtering. Also note that the where statement is used to filter the entire table before performing any aggregation or grouping, and the having is used after grouping to filter the table after aggregations have been done. Let's do an exercise. Say we want to find the total amount by payment method where the total amount is greater than 5,000. So we say select payment method and we had the aggregation, which is sum. We sum amounts as total amounts from our table, which is new patients, and we group by payment method and had our having clause. So having the sum of the amounts to be greater than 5,000, and we run this query. So we can see that the total sum here, everything here is greater than 5,000. And one thing you notice is the column used in the group by is stated in the select statement. The filtering done on the having is the same column as what was being used for the aggregation. Next, let us look at how we can sort our data. We sort our data by using the order by clause. This is used to sort data either in ascending order from the lowest to the highest or in descending order from the highest to the lowest. The order by clause takes two things into account: the name of the column you want to sort and the direction of the sorting. But let's say you don't specify the direction of the sorting, you don't need to worry. By default, SQL sorts data in ascending order. The syntax for this is select star from the table and order by the column name. Either you had ascending, for ascending order, or you put the descending for descending order. It is advisable to specify the direction so a second party or another user can easily interpret and understand your code. So for example, let's say we want to order by the lowest age in our new patient data. In our query tool, we write follow. To do this, we say select, let's say star, selecting all the data from our new patients table. And we say order by age, and we had this saying in ascending order, and we run our code. And if you look at this, we have 19, 22, 24, all the way to 62. And let's say we want this in descending order. All you need to do is change this to descending order and run this, and we can see they've swapped places. 62 is at the top, while 19 is at the bottom. Next, let's talk about limits. Limit is used to tell SQL the number of rows to return. Say we want 5 rows only, we will use the limit by 5. The syntax for this is select star from table, order by column name, let's say ascending or descending order, and you had limit 5. This query is telling SQL to show only the bottom 5 results since we're ordering by ascending order. If we wanted to see the top result, we would order by descending and limit it to 5. For example, we want to order by age in ascending order, but would like to limit this to 5. So we select from new patient, order by ascending order, and limit 5. When you run this, you only get the lowest 5 ages. And let's say you want the highest ages, the top 5 ages. All you need to do is change it from ascending to descending and run this. Here you can see the top 5 ages. You can change your limit. You can make it the top 2. You can also make it the top 3, depending on what desired result you want. Our final keyword for today is distinct. This is used to remove any duplicate values and only return unique values. The syntax is select distinct column name from table name. For example, if we want to find the distinct ages in our patient's table, so we say select distinct age from new patient. We run this code and we can see all the ages are distinct, meaning there is no repetition. Now let's move on to the SQL execution order. We've learned how to use the following clauses: the select, distinct, where, group by, having, order by, and limit. So the final order for writing our code is this. First, we start with select, distinct colon, and the sum, which is the aggregate from the table. You state your where condition, followed by the group by, and your having condition, followed by the order by, and you can order in either ascending or descending order, followed by the limit, and you state the number you want. But how does SQL actually execute this? It doesn't start at the top. First, it starts with from to identify the table. Next, it goes to where to filter the rows. Then, it executes group by to organize those rows. Next is having to filter the groups. Then, it performs the select to pick the column. After that, it applies distinct to remove duplicates. Then it runs order by to sort the final list. And finally, it applies the limit to give you the exact number of rows you asked for. Now we've come to the end of this video. You have learned how the SQL query works, how to use several clauses, and how they are executed. In our next video, we'll learn how to use several where conditions like and, in, or, between, and many more. If you found this helpful, give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video.